Director Curso is going to talk to us about the mid-year budget.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So something I'm gonna start doing in the middle of the week, I'm gonna start doing like calisthenics for everybody, that way we kind of wake up with their own numbers, especially after last night. I think some of us probably need to get a little blood flowing. So 2024 mid-year budget review. Believe it or not one of my favorite times of the year, but doing this does give us a chance to look at everything. 2023 fiscal year's done, halfway through the fiscal year 24. So we have an idea of what's going on. One of the things that we discussed earlier was the marijuana tax. We did get our first check in December. So we still don't have a great idea of where it's going to end up for 12 months or 6 months or whatever, but we have an idea. So the first one was just kind of, darts in the blue. It also gives us a chance to say, hey, we didn't have a chance to get this. I know one of the resolutions on the agenda is the police cars from last fiscal year. So they finally came in. We're still having those same, maybe not the same, but we are still having issues in getting equipment in. So we actually just purchased the bucket truck. I believe it was about a month ago. We did get 4 of the police vehicles. Finally, we did order for the 2024 fiscal year. All this information that we're doing is basically based off of the December financial statements. So I believe that was approved at the last city council meeting. We're going to go over all the budgeted funds. So general fund, community center, public safety sales tax, combined waterworks and sewage fund, capital improvement funds, and the capital equipment replacement fund. We did not put the parks fund tax on, but we do not have expenditures planned for this year for that fund. So starting with the general fund, you can see here, this is the same exact information that was on the December financials. 50% of the revenue has been collected. We have 52% expenditures remaining. So something to keep in mind, especially in the general fund and the community center fund, revenues and expenditures do not come in uniformly. So perfect example, last month we just received 99% of property tax. So within 2 days we received $3 million. So that's 15% of the entire general fund budget. Not represented here. You'll see it in the January financial statements. Same way with expenditures. Expenditures, like the biggest expenditure we have is insurance. We pay that July 1st. So that's $1 million out the door. Unfortunately, it just shows that way. So revenues and expenditures do not come in uniformly, not all of them. With that said, some of the items that we did make adjustments for this year on the revenue side, use tax has been huge. Again, I know we talked about this a few months ago with the Wayfair Act. That's made a huge difference. Companies are now reporting to the state of Missouri, which of course in turns into the municipal side. So with that, that's the $245,000 increase on the sales tax line for the general fund. Intergovernmental, that's just from the gas tax that goes up every year, and that's been coming in very good. Charges for services increased. That's mainly due to EMS transports. Miscellaneous revenue seems like a pretty big number. So basically, that's made up of safety loss control. So essentially, this year, what we did with safety loss control is we're using that to pay for our cybersecurity insurance. Cybersecurity insurance used to cost $2,000 a year. It's like $30,000. So big change. Other parts of the miscellaneous revenue are sale of assets and interest revenue. Interest revenue has been doing great. The equity transfer, the main reason for the increase in the equity transfer is due to just items that we didn't purchase last year. So again, bucket truck, 2 police cars out of the general fund, and we also we are funding the accrued compensated absences for the year. Total revenue for the general fund adopted is $24,812,915. To the mid-year proposed is $25,853,815. On the expenditure side, so this was just a general, a couple more slides will have more detail. We're recommending an adjustment in general administration of $71,500 to $1,363,411. Finance department recommending $25,000 increase for a total of $1,723,528. Police department, an increase of $100,000 to $6,530,184. Fire EMS, an increase of $87,500 for a total of $4,516,149. Community development, a $15,000 increase to $843,796. Parks and Recreation, $21,100 for $2,515,016. And non-departmental, an increase of $212,500 for a total of $1,260,657. That'll take total operating expenditures to $21,193,948 for an increase of $562,600. Again, a big part of that equity transfer is to purchase capital equipment, not in fiscal 23. It's also to pay for accrued compensated absences that have been accrued over the years. Total expenditures for the general fund, $25,853,815 for an increase of $1,040,500. With the proposed changes, beginning funds available will be $5,179,328. Total revenues $25,850,815. The equity adjustment of $903,470 gives us total funds available of $30,129,673. Expenditures $25,853,815 gives us ending funds available of $4,275,858. We do have the 20% fund balance requirement that we keep for the general fund, and we are $37,068 over that. As mentioned, a lot of these items are items that we either ordered or tried to order in the fiscal year 23 that we just could not get before June 30th. Some of those items, some of them are smaller, some of them are larger. Media code codification, I think we just actually got the bill for the flock implementation. Again, the accrued compensated absences. We are working on adopting a new time and attendance software. So the city's actually going digital with time and attendance, so that's going to be really nice for a lot of us. Again, 2 police vehicles and equipment, $110,000, and the bucket truck for $180,000. So these are all items that we reappropriated from the previous year for a total of $500,500. Excuse me. There are a lot of items on this list. I'm just going to kind of touch on some of the bigger ones. So we are recommending an increase for our legal contract. That will increase $37,000. Again, EMS collection for the general fund, $22,000. A revenue associated with that. So the more we receive in EMS collections, the more we pay for the billing company. There is $90,000 in for overtime for police, $50,000 in overtime for fire. Another big one is the increase for the ladder truck. So originally we budgeted, we actually issued debt for the ladder truck. This will complete the payment for that truck between this and the equipment replacement fund. So total on this list is $540,400. Any questions on any of the general fund items? Justin, can you? I tried that earlier. It was like a dance party. So I did something wrong. It was really bad.
Oh, that's so much better.
See, that's a lot better job.
Thank you.
Moving on to the community center. Again, similar to the general fund, a lot of the revenues do not come uniform. We do have the main transfer that comes in the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, which we actually received in January, was the transfer payment from the North Kansas City School District of $720,000. And then at the end of the year, we'll do another transfer for the ARPA money that we budgeted for this fund. So as you can see, right now, we've only received 45% of revenue from this fund. However, again, next month, you're going to see that $725,000 check all in one. So that 55 or 45% number actually is going to go to 65%. Expenditures, we do have 52% remaining, so we have spent 48%. Community center, so something I mentioned in the memo, we did have some revenue loss due to COVID. We had a lot of people, less people were visiting, coming out, doing activities. We're actually seeing numbers that are pre-COVID now. So we've surpassed what we did in, I guess it was 2019, 2020. So everything's back on track. Adjustments to revenue mainly include charges for services and facility rental. Total increase in operating revenues, $120,000 for a total of $3,215,250. Other increases, miscellaneous revenue, which is interest revenue for the fund. Expenditures for the fund. As we have had issues in previous years, we are having issues with the HVAC system. We've had several repairs, and it's horrible that I can say I know it's RTU 4 and 7, but it's RTU 4 and 7 that we spend a lot on keeping it running. That's what you're seeing a lot of the adjustments on here for. An increase of $29,800 for a total of $969,268 for the community center. Increase of $82,200 for the natatorium for a total of $1,111,981. No change for the outdoor pool, and $11,000 increase for the non-departmental, which is insurance, as it can easily be charged from one cost zone. So total expenditures for the total operating expenditures for the community center fund, $2,439,497. Capital changes in capital, $15,100. Essentially, that pays for some of the items that were completed at the end of the year last year that we didn't end up paying for until early in 24. So there were some pool painting items and things like that that were finished up in August of 2023. Total expenditures for the fund, $4,815,897. That gives us starting funds of $1,357,400. Revenues $5,058,150. Gives us net funds available $6,415,550. Total expenditures $4,815,897. Gives us community funds available $1,599,653. Again, as we talked about earlier, the majority of these additions are due to HVAC repairs. That's what the 75,000 and 18,000 is. Other than that, a big part of it is due to the new contracts for janitorial trash items like that. At the bottom, you can see the addition for the pool painting from the prior year and additional cost of insurance. Any questions on the community center?
Very quickly, Mayor, the HVAC issues that you speak of, do we have replacement scheduled for any of these things, or just stay on board?
So we've started our grant. It was through Congressman Cleaver's office.
But 2 years ago.
It was a little while ago, so it is through housing and urban development. We are working on that to replace RTU 4 and 7 and possibly do some other maintenance work to the roof and whatever items the HVAC system may need. So we're hoping.
And it's real easy to throw good money after bad when it comes to that stuff. Anymore.
It is. And when we started with the Navitas program, and I believe that was 2017, that was one of the items that was quantified between closing the community center for, it was like a month to get the HVAC equipment up there, repair the parking lot, and items like that. So that actually was quantified, and it did not pass the test for replacement at the time. Public safety sales tax, main driver for public safety sales tax is the 0.25% sales tax that the fund receives. Here we're showing 52% of revenue has been received from the fund, 48% of expenditures are remaining. So it is a little bit more than 50%. However, we did purchase new body cameras this year. So that number does include that purchase. So I believe that's $190,000, which you'll see here shortly. Main item that's being adjusted on this for revenue is interest revenue for miscellaneous, $15,000. We are adding the equity transfers, so the body cams that we purchased were purchased from a lease purchase that we did in 2019. So that revenue from the debt proceeds has been rolled in the fund balance, so that's where that's coming from. Total projected revenues for the fund, $1,336,872. Change operating expenditure changes, $30,000 in overtime. Other than that, the only other change is the $300,000 in capital, and that takes care of the other two police cars that we ordered from 2023 that we pay out PSST, along with $190,000 for the body cams. Total expenditures for the fund, $1,336,872. Ending fund balance for the public safety sales tax is projected to be $472,134. I just gave up my surprise on the next slide. Here's the items that we are being recommended. Combined water and sewerage system. DWSS for the water. Same thing, or close to the same thing. 46% remaining, so we've collected 54% of all revenue for the year, or projected revenue, and 50% of the expenditures. We do have some adjustments to revenue and expense. The main one being $275,000 in ARPA funding. This is the funding we secured from the county. This is the remainder of the, I believe it was $800,000 for water and sewer main replacements through the year. So that will be complete this year, as well as some miscellaneous revenue, which is mainly sale of assets and interest revenue. So we did buy the new Vector, a couple of dump trucks, so those will all be sold this year. Total operating revenue, $13,266,435. No change in non-operating revenue for the year. Total revenue for the fund, $14,166,435. Expenditures, we did have a few changes. $8,000 in operations and maintenance, an addition of $45,000 in non-departmental. Total operating expenditures of $11,109,868. We did have the change in capital, which again, that's for the completion of the ARPA water main projects. That gives us total non-operating expenditures of $3,056,567. So total expenditures for the fund, $14,166,435. With those recommended changes, that leaves the water fund with an ending fund balance of $3,388,035. Recommended adjustment, $3,600 for the enterprise lease. So we started leasing some new vehicles from enterprise. That'll take care of the additional portion of that. $8,000 in water supplies, $249,400 for the ARPA water main replacements, and $45,000 for insurance. Does anybody remember the old shows, slides we used to have? Just take. I know you guys laughed at me a couple of years ago for that, but I was pretty excited about it. So, all capital improvement funds, sorry. So, capital improvement funds are CISD and TSD. Both are funded by 0.5% sales tax. No real change in this fund except for no real change except for the 1.5 million. So that is ARPA funding that we have not used, and we will discuss those changes for a second. Total budgeted revenue for the fund, $5,085,000. So here are the expenditures for the fund. Nothing has been decreased. However, we have added a couple of stormwater projects, 57th Street, 68th Street, Brooktree Lane, 75th Street, and Old Pike. The big projects that have been changed, police headquarters is final. So we will be completing that this year, along with the City Hall interior of $1.45 million. So that's an increase of $450,000. We're also putting back in the downtown lighting for $350,000 for the fund. That brings the 24 estimated expenditures for CIST $10,881,175, leaving us an ending fund balance $296,673. Something I do want to point out before I get to the end of this. So the sale of the 2024 COP is scheduled for the 22nd of February. We don't know what that number is. We know it's going to be approximately 23 million. Those amounts, those projects have not been. TSP fund, no change in revenue, $3,090,000. The only change in the expenditures, we've increased the curb gutter and sidewalk program, $350,000, or sorry, $350,000 to $3,440,000. That will leave us an ending fund balance of $250,039. Last but not least, capital equipment replacement fund or SERF. Again, the main driver in this fund is use tax. So that's where we're seeing the increase this year. $55,000. Miscellaneous revenue, again, interest. We are increasing the revenue, the equity transfer for $415,000. Again, that's to pay mainly for items we did not receive in the prior year. Expenditures of $800,000 for capital, $65,000, and for debt, which is no change. Transfers $300,000, no change, for total expenditures of $1,165,000. So that will take the fund balance to serve to $188,764. So the reason for those changes, last year we did start on a project to replace the tanks, the fuel tanks at Public Works. So that will happen this year. We've also had $125,000 for additional budget for the longer term that we now have. That's it. Questions, comments, feedback?
Mayor, sometime in the next couple of weeks, could reschedule a time where you could kind of give me the last 5 or 10 year history of your PSST fund, just kind of that.
We don't definitely do that.
We need soon.
Other questions, comments for Don? Councilman Barno?
Thank you, Mayor. 2 quick questions, Dominic. Back on the general fund. Since you have a mid-year adjustment increase of $245,000 for sales tax, I'm assuming that means that by that indicator, the economy is looking good in Gladstone these days.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to send out the review that we got from S&P this week, basically saying the same thing. That adjustment in sales tax is due to just use tax only. So sales tax is about 2% higher than last year, which is good. But I don't usually get too excited about that small of a change. So the use tax, amount of use tax that we've gotten this year is, I mean, it's been enough to be on our board constantly. Where's all this money coming from? Why haven't we done it? So Missouri was actually, I believe, the last state to adopt non-use tax. So that just actually happened I believe it was in 22. So that's where this is coming from. So we have experienced a lot of growth in the use tax.
And the other question I had was, with this mid-year adjustment, that puts the general fund for Gladstone over $30 million for the first time in our city's history.
Yes. As far as I know. However, something to consider is a lot of that is due to capital.
And I remember working on budgets that were 2021. It's the first time I've seen it go over 30. It's an arbitrary number, but shows we're growing and doing.
I remember one of the biggest issues I had was when I started probably the first 6 years, property tax had been relatively the same. So we would see that same, CPI increase, things like that. Well, then all of a sudden we started rolling levy back. I started struggling on, okay, where do I find examples of this? How do I change my projections to go, okay, the valuation's gone up so much, we just start going that. So yeah, it's, between 10% inflation in previous years, or say higher inflation in previous years, we have had a lot of things change, like the hotel, marijuana industry, things like that, that have brought new revenue streams into the city.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, Dominic, can you explain a little bit more about marijuana tax and how it is distributed? So we received it for the first time this past December.
Correct.
So how often now would we receive it? Is it yearly or annually or?
We will get it monthly. I think they like to keep a little bit of mystery on how it works. I can say that because most cities only have one dispensary. So, in all its celebration, we can't disclose information to you. It is what it is. But we do receive a monthly check, even though everything else is done by ACH. As long as the postal service comes through for us, we will post it. But we are keeping it just in the general fund sales tax. That way we're not disclosing that information that's supposed to be secret.
So I was going to ask you, you're not giving us numbers here,
No.
so it's secret.
There are 3 people that are on the super secret list. So myself, City Manager Bear, and our systems analyst Robert. So we're not supposed to disclose any information to any business. We try to, group it as retail stores, pharmaceuticals. So we can't just say marijuana dispensaries. If we had to, we could. But sorry.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Dominic. Great job as always.
We will have a resolution. We'll have a resolution on the agenda for the first meeting in March. Thank you.
for Monday, February 12th. Thank you for everyone who is here tonight and those of you who are tuning in online. Madam Clerk, please note that all council members are present tonight. We have a quorum. And if you will rise and join in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 on our agenda tonight is the approval of the agenda. Is there anyone on the council who wishes to make a change in the agenda this evening? And then it will be as printed. Number 5 is approval of the January 22nd, 2024 closed city council meeting minutes.
Mayor Moore,
Councilman Balance.
I move to approve the minutes from the January 22nd, 2024 closed city council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the closed city council meeting of January 22, 2024. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Item number 6 is the approval of the January 22, 2024 regular city council meeting minutes.
Mayor Moore,
Councilman Balance.
I move to approve the minutes from the January 22nd, 2024 regular city council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the January 22nd, 2024 regular city council meeting. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. Item number 7 is communications from the audience. This is a time during each council meeting when we invite members of the public to speak to the council on an item not on our agenda. We ask that people give their name and address and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to bring a matter before the council this evening? Yes, sir, please approach. Good evening.
Good evening. Madam Mayor, my name is Michael. I'm the content director for an organization called Lawrence Accountability. I believe each of you received some communications over the weekend from me. It was distressing for me to learn on Friday that an officer that I had been kind of keeping track of for some time was hired by the Gladstone Police Department. I have a small handout. I was instructed to give it to the city clerk, I believe. There's nothing fabulous in there. I have an extra for you if you'd like. There's nothing fabulous in there. Just want to draw your attention back to some news articles that have ran. Chris Katz had covered this. Andy Alcock has spent quite a bit of time covering this. There was a foundation that was extremely mismanaged to the point that the foundation was criminally investigated. The Fraternal Order of Police actually pushed the Johnson County DA to file criminal charges. While Stephen Howe ultimately declined to file criminal charges against anyone involved, the other thing he did say when he announced that was that these officers had violated the public trust. And that's an important thing when we think about police officers who are patrolling our streets. They have an immense amount of public trust in their hands. And when we place that trust in somebody's hands who's shown willingness to violate it for their own gain or their own needs, that's a bit of a problem. And I question whether there was an accurate background check involved, because as you're aware, there was an open record request submitted under the Missouri Sunshine Law. And I appreciate your city clerk for responding to that today promptly. But there was a video posted to this police department's Facebook page, and in that video, Chief Fred Ferris actually mentioned that it was Rachel's connections to her work with foundations that had gotten her this position. I believe he said that to a man named Rob Sanderson, who runs a foundation called Swell. Him and Rachel go back and I believe in Chief go back to the Lennox PD a number of years ago. Migrating officers is a problem, especially migrating bad officers. I want you guys to please consider what information is available to you, and if necessary, you can reach out to just about any news organization in Kansas City. I know Katie Moore ran an article about it today and has done in-depth reporting on this. It's hard for me to understand how the chief didn't know. And if the chief did know, it's hard for me to understand how he could make a decision to hire with such fanfare someone who had resigned in disgrace not only 3 months ago. So I want to thank you for your time and attention to this matter. Again, I'm from Lawrence, Kansas. It's not often that I take the time to drive 60 miles out of my area. And if anybody has ever seen me speak before to city commissions, I can be a little bit harsh. I push my First Amendment a long way. I'm hoping that you guys will take your job responsibilities very seriously and handle this matter in the right way possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to bring a matter before the council evening? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Kars. I'm an employee with Northland Neighborhoods Incorporated. And I'm bringing some comments and concerns regarding the Turning Point Church, just an uptick in criminal activity around the area, but that I can say that later.
Right.
Okay.
You will have an opportunity later.
I was reading the agenda. I'm going to check.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to bring a matter before the council that is not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we will move to item 8, which is communications from the city council. We'll begin with Councilman Smith.
Really have nothing to.
Councilman Mellon.
Mayor, no comments this evening.
Thank you. Councilman Barnos.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got two to cover Ferrari and West. I have the same conflict that I had last month because of President's Day next week. I've got both the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and BCA at 5:30 next Tuesday, if anybody's interested in picking one of those up. And then I also wanted to mention, last Tuesday, I had the opportunity to attend a multi-chamber of commerce at the community center. We had chambers of commerce from Kearney, Excelsior Springs, Gladstone, Liberty, Smithville. It was a very nice gathering, good networking, and wanted to congratulate Director Murphy and his staff for hosting a very nice event for all of the out-of-towners. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Spello.
Well, I think it serves us right to say congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs for the Super Bowl victory last night. Very exciting. But really why I want to mention that is just to think about the economic impact that it has had right here in Gladstone. You know, we see that, you know, the big discussion about the stadiums in Jackson County and where they're going to go, the economic impact there, but really it's far reaching. And just to walk into Hy-Vee, Walmart, seeing people purchase clothing, food, just all sorts of items to get ready for their parties and celebrations. It's a huge deal for us, and I think it's great that that we have these types of organizations in the area, and that we support them, no matter if they're right here in our very own city or not. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. I had just a couple of things. First of all, my husband and I had the opportunity to do our annual volunteer on Friday night at the Sweetheart Dance. This is I don't know how many years this has been going on, but it is an amazing 2-night event. That it's usually daddies and daughters, moms and daughters. Really fun event. It sells out all the time. The kids and the dads have a great time. So it's always a fun thing to volunteer at that event, and I will also send my kudos to Justin Murphy and his department. They worked very, very hard to make that a success. So thanks, Justin. I also today, Saturday, I wanted to read a note that I got from a resident. These are the good thank you notes that, this is very brief, but it says it's from Mr. Dick Cooper, who wrote to say, Mayor Moore, I just wanted to go on record to say that Gladstone Public Works does a fantastic job of keeping our streets repaired. They are the best at snow removal and fixing potholes. Please extend our thanks to your crews. So Tim, big kudos, and all of us express our deepest thanks for all the work that everybody's been doing on the potholes. I do want to point out that we have had a lot of conversation about potholes on M1. And just a baby reminder that M1 is MoDOT, not the city of Gladstone. So we have been in contact with MoDOT multiple times to make sure that they get out there and get those potholes repaired, because M1 is not in really good shape. So I just wanted to point that out. Last, I wanted to do an business under our communications from the city council. We need to make the official appointment of James Lyon to the Arts Commission. Mr. Lyon has been appointed for a term expiring December 2026. So I would like to have a motion that we appoint Mr. Lyon to the Arts Commission. Councilman Smith. Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Mr. James Lyon to the Arts Commission for a term expiring December 2026. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Lyon is officially appointed. I think that does it for us. Mr. Bayer, it's your turn. Oh my God. That's rare. Thank you. Well, we will move to the consent agenda, item number 10. It's long this evening, so Madam Clerk, will you please explain and read the consent agenda?
A consent agenda allows the city council to consider and approve routine items of business without discussion. Any member of the city council, the city staff, or the public may request removal of any item from the consent agenda or request that it be considered under the regular agenda if discussion or debate of the item is desired. Items not removed from the consent agenda will stand approved upon motion by any council member, second unanimous vote, to approve the consent agenda as published or modified. Consent agenda, resolution R-24-03, a resolution authorizing acceptance of a bid from Texas Pride Trailers for the purchase of a 20-foot equipment trailer in the total amount of $19,550. Resolution R-24-04, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Warrior Lawn and Landscape LLC in an amount not to exceed $91,140 for annual mowing services of certain city of Gladstone parks and facilities. Resolution R-24-05, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Hygiene Janitorial Service, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $185,940 for annual janitorial services of certain city of Gladstone facilities. Resolution R-24-06, a resolution authorizing acceptance of work under contract with Playscape Recreation LLC for the replacement of 2 Oak Grove Park shelters and authorizing final payment in the amount of $144,943.87 for project CP2357. Resolution R-24-07, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Anderson Mechanical LLC in the total amount not to exceed $277,000 for the replacement of community center pool filters, project CC2460. Resolution R-24-08, a resolution authorizing acceptance of a proposal from Shawnee Mission Ford, Shawnee, Kansas, for the purchase of 4 2023 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor SUV vehicles for the total purchase amount of $169,924. Resolution R-24-09, a resolution authorizing acceptance of a proposal from Traffic Control Systems, DBA TCS, Wichita, Kansas, for the upfitting of 4 2023 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor SUV vehicles for the total amount of $31,548.76. Resolution R-24-10, a resolution authorizing acceptance of a proposal from Traffic Control Systems, TCS, Wichita, Kansas, for the purchase and upfitting of 2023 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor SUV vehicles in the total amount of $209,660.28.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes the removal of an item from the consent agenda for discussion? Seeing none, anyone on the council? Staff?
No.
Thank you.
Mayor Moore,
Councilman Mallon?
I move to approve the consent agenda as it is presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The consent agenda is. We will move to item number 11 on the agenda, which is a public hearing for a special use permit from Point to continue operating a social services organization at 1990 Northeast Englewood Road. I will open the public hearing. We will first hear from the staff, then the applicant, then those in favor, and those opposed, and then we will close the public hearing. Mr. Rear.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I've been a little bit under the weather the last couple of days, so just bear with me as I get through this long staff report. The applicant is requesting a 3-year special use permit to operate a social services organization at 1900 and 1904 Northeast Englewood Road. The need for a special use permit at this location is because the Turning Point is operating a social services organization in an R1 single-family zoning district. For comparison, Synergy Services and Northland Shepherd Center are located in commercial zoning districts along commercial corridors adjacent to North Oak Trackway and Northeast Antioch Road. In 2023, a Turning Point was granted a 1-year special use permit by the Gladstone City Council. The applicant has requested to edit the following conditions. Condition number 4, which is to allow for the repurposed space in the southeast wing of the Recreation Center, which is the gymnasium building, to be used for individuals to eat, meet privately with social workers and mental health counselors, or supplies. Condition number 15, facilitate community meetings quarterly instead of every other month. City staff finds these edits are reasonable and is agreeable to them. In summary, a Turning Point provides the following services: a food pantry, wardrobe, clothes closet, education academy, a new program called IDEMIA, which is fingerprinting and background check services, the Institute program, which is a new program for skilled trades and workforce development, community meals, day center services, community meetings, support groups, job training programs, and the gymnasium. Kathy McIntyre, who's the executive director of the Turning Point, has submitted an updated and detailed narrative further explaining the organization and the services that they provide. That document can be found in your packet. Luther Saladin, who represents Holy Cross Lutheran Church, spoke during the Planning Commission public hearing. He also submitted to staff a letter from church leadership with example encounters and pictures from their experience with being located across the street from a Turning Point. These documents can also be found in your packet. City staff recommends that the following conditions be considered if the Planning Commission and City Council chooses to approve this 3-year special use permit. Number 1, this special use permit is issued to a Turning Point for 1900 and 1904 Northeast Englewood Road only. If ATP relocates, sells, or leases this location to another tenant, either ATP or other tenants must reapply for a new permit to continue the uses authorized in this ordinance. This special use permit is non-transferable to another tenant occupying space at these locations. Expansion of uses not contained in the submitted application or this ordinance is prohibited. Number 2, a Turning Point shall apply for and maintain all applicable state, county, and city business and occupational licenses. A copy of such business and occupational licenses shall be provided to the Community Development Department. Number 3, hours of operation for this location shall be limited to 7 o'clock a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. Monday through Saturday each week, except that otherwise provided herein. Number 4, this special use permit allows for the following uses at 1900 and 1904 Northeast Englewood Road: food pantry, wardrobe, clothes closet, education academy, IDEMIA services for fingerprinting and background checks, site to store, prepare, and load vehicles for the Community Meals Outreach Program, day center services, otherwise known as the guest house. Services provided shall be shower and laundry facilities, hot meals, computer and internet access, and case management. Hours of operation for these specific services shall be limited to Monday through Friday from 10 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. Community meetings, support groups, the community garden, one community garden not exceeding 3,600 square feet. The Institute job training programs for skilled trades and workforce development. Gymnasium building for youth sports leagues, practices, tournaments, performances, recreation, educational activities. The repurposed space in the southeast wing can also be used for individuals to eat, meet privately with social workers, mental health counselors, and store supplies. Shower and laundry facilities are prohibited. All building and fire safety requirements shall be complied with and maintained as required. The 6-foot privacy fence, as well as the property located north and south of the adjacent to the privacy fence next to the residential homes to the commercial use, shall be maintained in perpetuity by a turning point. Number 7, signage shall follow all rules and regulations associated with all of the City of Gladstone sign ordinances. Landscaping approved by the Community Development Department shall be installed and maintained around the monument sign located adjacent to Northeast Louisville Road. Number 8, all mechanical equipment located on the roof and the ground shall be screened from public view, similar design to the rest of the structure. All screening shall be approved by the Community Development Department. Number 9, trash service and commercial delivery shall occur between the hours of 7 o'clock a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. Number 10, dumpster enclosures shall be constructed with materials consistent with the primary building. Specific colors and materials shall be approved by the Community Development Department. Number 11, tractor trailers, storage containers, RVs, campers, and commercial vehicles other than one turning point box truck shall be parked on site or stored illegally on the premises. Storage containers shall not be stored on site unless as part of a valid building permit. Number 12, overnight accommodations of any kind on the property are prohibited. However, this prohibition does not include temporary overnight stays not to exceed 5 nights at a time of 6 occasions per year by organizations performing mission work in and around the greater Kansas City area. In addition, this condition does not include the on-site manager position and his or her immediate family who reside on the property. Number 13, a turning point shall submit an annual report of services provided by program type to community development as an attachment to any special use permit renewal application. The turning point shall track all service usage by residents. For clients that are currently houseless, a turning point shall attempt to determine previous locations of habitation. Number 14, a turning point shall provide education to all clients concerning appropriate access and use of services, including, but not limited to, activities and behavior in and around the area surrounding a turning point. A turning point shall provide these educational materials and operational procedures to the Community Development Department within 14 days upon request. Number 15, in the spirit of community partnership, the turning point shall facilitate and host quarterly meetings inviting the city's police department and area residents, property owners, parents, churches, and businesses to discuss the overall operation and any concerns related to the turning point's use of the property. The turning point shall create written minutes of these meetings and submit them to participants in the Community Development Department within 7 days of each such meeting. Number 16, continue to operate and update the existing emergency and security plan. If updates occur, submit the updated plan to the Community Development Department and Police Department within 14 days of the implementation date. Number 17, continue to operate and update the existing plan that provides for a volunteer or staff on-site monitor or greeter to be present during peak guest house hours, who is responsible to oversee access to the property and to facilitate pedestrian clients onto and off the property. If updates occur, submit the updated plan to the Community Development Department within 14 days of the implementation date. Number 18, continue to operate and update rapid communications tools that allow area residents to alert a turning point of concerns as they arise. A turning point shall provide the Community Development Department with information regarding the mechanisms developed to continue implementation of this requirement. A turning point shall document the number, type of concern, and outcome of each response and submit the resulting data to the Community Development Department upon request as part of any future special use permit renewal application. Number 19, in the event that staff leadership changes with a Turning Point, the new leadership shall schedule a meeting with the city manager or his or her designee to review the special use permit and discuss performance expectations. If possible, this should occur prior to any transition taking place, but in no event shall occur later than 30 days after the transition. Any false statements in the application submitted by a Turning Point or violation of the conditions stated in this ordinance or other city code requirements may, after reasonable notice under the circumstances, has been provided to a Turning Point by the city, result in the suspension, modification, revocation, cancellation, or non-renewal of the special use permit. The leadership of a Turning Point and city staff are in agreement on all conditions. City staff recommends that the request be approved contingent upon the conditions listed above. Tonight we actually have Captain Carl Burris with us tonight to provide an update on a couple of police instances that have reportedly happened at a Turning Point, even since the Planning Commission met in January. Most recently, I believe an instance or two took place over this past weekend. So I would invite Captain Burris to the podium to shed some light on those instances and answer any questions the City Council may have. Thank you.
Mayor, council members. Just we started gathering data for this meeting tonight and some of the other meetings prior to this, we've had, it's been kind of surprising, we've had quite an uptick this year. If we look back at calls for service, and when we say calls for service, we take out everything self-initiated. We take out, officers going up there in the middle of the night, walking around, making sure the building's secure. We're not counting anything like that. We're counting actual calls that were for the police or medical or fire service. I don't believe there were any fire calls. There were some EMS calls and primarily police calls. But just kind of to give some context, in 2022, it looks like we had a total of 17 calls for service there. That included 3 of those were EMS calls, the rest were police related. Once again, in 2023, we had 17 calls for service at a Turning Point. And at that point, it was two of those were EMS calls. The remaining 15 were police related, police matters. And when I say police matters, it could be anything from a disturbance to a check for welfare on somebody. Maybe, it's not uncommon, maybe after hours, to have people up there and people call and want us to check their welfare. Surprisingly, we've actually had some animal control calls up there. And often these are because some of their clients will come up and have pets, and sometimes they inadvertently get loose, or maybe they leave them locked in a vehicle while they're inside getting services. So people will get concerned and call on those. Suspicious people and circumstances. We actually did in 2023. They were Turning Point was actually the victim of a burglary, I believe. It looks like. And then just your general police type calls for service. One interesting thing, though, as I mentioned, in 2022 and 2023, coincidentally, both had 17 calls for service each year. Since January 1st of this year, we've had 13 calls for service. I don't know. I can't really explain the uptick. Maybe it has something to do with the weather. I don't know. I can tell you that several of those calls were involving one individual in particular that I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't know exactly. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he had been a consumer Turning Point services. I don't know what exactly happened without going back and reading all the reports, but I know that he became a concern to the staff members and personnel at a Turning Point that have to obtain an ex parte order against him. We dealt with him multiple times, actually arresting him a couple of times. Some other things we've had since then, we had a suspicious subject call just, I believe it was last weekend, one evening. There was a middle school age girls basketball team using the gym to practice, and when it came was an individual there, kind of loitering in the hallway, making them a little bit uncomfortable. Officers were called, they came, they showed up. The individual, we could not prove that he was doing anything other than he was sitting there. He was a consumer services, and he was sitting there using their electricity to charge his phone. The downside is he was making the girls uncomfortable, and he also turned out to be a wanted absconder, wanted felon for, I believe, his burglary. We do encounter people down there occasionally, unfortunately, that do have wants. I know, I believe a month or so ago, we had what I would characterize as kind of a slow speed car chase, just kind of in a big circle around the city in the middle of the night, involving a wanted party. And this individual, while I don't know if they are actually homeless, they are a consumer of a turning points. We have dealt with them in the past frequently, usually in that area. They run out their cars a significant amount of the time. They were wanted out in Kansas for, I believe, at least one, if not more, felonies. And that ended up involving, I believe, 3 different agencies. I believe the Sheriff's Department of Kansas City and ourselves were involved in it before they got them into custody. But that is just kind of an update on some of the incidents we've had there. I will give Kathy and her people kudos. They are good about communicating with us. We do recognize they provide a service, and they have been very good about letting us know. And they're pretty good about appropriately, if it's a 911 issue, they call 911. But they're also good about, they have called me several times. I've got calls from their personnel with non-emergency type asks or questions or requests for information on some of the people they're dealing with. So I will say there is good communication between our organization and a turning point. The meetings are a positive thing. But as far as the police department, that's kind of where we're at as far as the involvements we've had with the turning point and that surrounding area.
Any questions?
Captain Burks, have you had any communication with the school district in regards to a homeless population, a group at Davidson Elementary, which is just south of the turning point?
Not personally with the school district. I do know because of some of the meetings that we're involved with, regional meetings with some of our other partners in the Northland, other cities, specifically Kansas City, Missouri, and in North Kansas City. We do meet in a community action team meeting a couple times a month, and I know that Kansas City has had issues there on the south side of Inglewood. At one point, if I'm not mistaken, I want to be accurate in what I say, and since it's not our city, I don't have exact numbers or details. I know there has been homeless camp that Kansas City's had to deal with at times. I am not sure about the proximity to the school, but I do know that they have had issues on the south side, which is kind of problematic at times because of the city limit right there. They don't always know exactly what we're doing, even though we try to communicate well, and I think we do a good job of communicating with our partners. Sometimes that communication comes kind of after the fact. And, so Kansas City has their issues on their side, we may have issues on our side. And sometimes by the time we learn about them, it might be days later instead of right then. So
I'm just curious about your opinion. It's great that a turning point is a good communicator. And I'm trying to think how we can improve the communications. Would it be advantageous at the quarterly meetings to have a representative from KCMO Police Department or possibly somebody from the school district security department at those quarterly meetings?
I think that would be an incredible idea. And I'm sad that I did not think of that, for you mentioning that. I don't know if they've been approached about this in the past, but yeah, I think anytime we have any kind of regional, whether it's a good thing or potential issue, it's always, the more people you get at the table, the more stakeholders you have, the better it's going to
Any other questions? Thank you for updating us. We appreciate it.
Do you have questions for me?
Any questions? Awesome.
Kathy, are you going to speak this
I am,
evening?
yeah.
Okay,
As soon as it's my turn.
okay.
It's probably her turn now.
Well, good evening. We're here again, huh? I'm not gonna, I don't wanna sit and use my time to belabor all the services. You guys know what those are. You have specific questions. Super, super excited and happy to answer them. About our expansion, our growth, anything new we're doing. I'm happy to answer those. I'd rather spend my time answering your questions and addressing what Captain Bruce just spoke about. I think that's more important and probably fresh in your mind and you're wondering about it. It's kind of relieving to hear that from 2022, we just came on the scene there at that campus in November, so it's called 17 again in 2023. I do think I can explain the uptick in that 2024 number since January. He mentioned that 13. He's exactly right. There is one individual who we have never removed services from a client period, ever in our time here. I don't know if I just hit something that made that go off. Can you hear me okay though? We've never removed services from any client, and we have removed them from one individual. And that one individual was for putting hands on a staff member, which was me, incidentally. We called because he refused to leave campus. I'll just give you a snippet review. Gladstone police confronted and struggled to remove him as well. There was he was non-compliant. I'll just put it that way. They eventually let him away. We filed trespassing charges so that we could kind of safe-proof our campus. He continued over the next 3 weeks or so. It's been 4 weeks. I don't know the exact date. I have to look back. Continually violated that and shown up on campus multiple times to where we had to call for Gladstone police to come and press those charges. Finally, under the advice of one of the Gladstone officers that responded when I was there, he advised for me to go get the ex parte, the restraining order. And so we did that because he is a hostile individual. Trouble serving those papers occurred. We went to court last week. He wasn't served. He has now been served because of another incident that has occurred since just last week. Just showing up on our property, they were able to serve him the papers. So I could go back and look at my records because I'm keeping them in my office. I didn't when I looked for him to tell you how many of those 13 calls were regarding this one individual, but most of them were, if not. I know they all weren't, but most of them were. So I don't know if that clarifies anything for you or gives you, a little bit of additional insight, but I definitely want to let you guys know what's happening with that situation. I also love the idea that you brought up, about the communication. We welcome our meetings, our community meetings are open, and I would welcome, I think it's a great idea to invite Kansas City police officers. And there have been, I think one of our meetings had a school district rep. They were made aware of them, whether their staff, anybody from their staff can attend, but yeah, I think that's a great idea. We do really, really highly value our relationship, and it's a good working relationship with the Gladstone Police Department. We really try to only call when we cannot de-escalate a situation that occurs, which is very rare for the number of folks we're seeing and who we're seeing and that kind of thing. I do also want to just kind of recalculate. I know you've been given the information from Austin and all the reports. I think we've done a very good job of tracking and recording and responding and submitting reports for all those 20 stipulations or whatever they were. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about it. Question?
Yes, so Kathy, can you give us some information about your statistics? How many have you increased your service to people since you guys did start providing services back in 22?
Every year since our beginning, we've increased, yes, so without a doubt. In each program, there's been growth, yes. And so, overall, I don't remember the percentage of growth from last year to this year. 24% maybe is what's sticking in my mind, but we've seen growth in the food pantry, in the wardrobe, in the academy, in the guest house, across the board, we have seen growth, yes.
So you're serving more people because there's more need.
Correct.
A comment and a question.
Yep.
I know when we did the walkthrough at a turning point, I support your mission and what you do. I remember during that walkthrough, you talked about, as a client would come in, you talk about the importance of appropriate behavior. Obviously no drug usage, alcohol while they're there within the facility. And then I started wondering, here's the question part. Since there has been an uptick, and now we understand it's pretty much related to one individual, I was wondering then, have you had changes in staffing to where that information isn't being communicated to your clients, to your customers, about what appropriate behavior and your expectations are of people being there?
No, we've had an increase in staff, let me start with that. And so, but our staff is well trained, they go through de-escalation classes, you know what I mean, and all that. That's just our protocol, what we've always done. Every time a client presents, most especially in the guest house, because the guest house is the longest time we see a client, you know, food pantries in and out in 45 minutes, you know, or less usually. The safety agreement signed, we go over with it every time.
Okay.
So that's very clearly made.
That's it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Kathy? Councilman Farmer.
Thank you, welcome, nice to see you again.
You too.
I have just a couple of questions. One, I remember when we talked about this a year ago, there had been some talk about establishing residential facilities in the Northland. We didn't have any, that was part of the problem. There was hopefully some progress on the horizon. Is there any improvement from where we were a year ago on residential facilities or services?
Not at this point. It has been extremely discussed. It's all about money and location, you know, just like everything else, it seems like. So no, we are still very actively looking and in the Northland, Kansas City side to try to come up with the right location, the funding, you know, we're poised and ready to go to make something happen. It's just a matter of putting all the elements together at the right place.
So still no real residential services,
Correct, no
shelter
residential.
facilities available in the Northland?
No residential, what was your last comment? No what?
Shelter.
No shelter, I heard the rest. Yeah, no sheltering on our.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing I remember from a year ago is, I know we were all impressed when we went through your facility and we saw the work you were doing with the closed pantry and the food bank and the education academy. I think we all were impressed with what we saw and what we found out on those tours. And I remember that those parts of the operation were not really causing any of the problems. The people that were being served by those, how they get to your facility and leave, and those areas didn't seem to be the ones that were causing the issues or problems. It was more the guest house and the day center. Is that, I'm assuming that's still the case, that the other parts of the operation have not had the kinds of problems?
We've had a few elements of having to just put out a fire, not necessarily call the police department or anything, but you have to remember that the food pantry and the wardrobe and those other elements, they are in and out in a half hour to 45 minutes. We're seeing guest house clients for 4 hours at a time. It's a different element, you know, altogether. And frankly, they're a different demographic of people who we're serving. They're the ones surviving on the streets.
Yeah.
And so, yes, that is a fair thing to say, but I do think you have to kind of put it into the big picture of who and how we're serving in that time period.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions?
I do have another comment. Captain Burst,
Yes,
I think possibly we are in agreement, either having somebody from KCMO Police or somebody from the school district be a regular partner at the quarterly meetings. Is that something that you can take upon connecting with KCMO
yes.
and see if that can be worked out?
Yeah, absolutely. We're in contact on a fairly regular basis with the major in terms of the Shoal Creek Division, which would encompass that area. He's very, very cooperative and very much into collaboration and working together. And so I feel very confident that if we reached out to him, he would.
Great. I just didn't want to fall through the cracks.
No, he will take care of that.
Thank you. Kathy, I know you said that of those 13 calls for service so far in this calendar year, you felt like a big percentage of those were this one individual. Half?
Well, I can only think of
75%?
one, and this is just from my memory, okay? I can only think of one other time that the Gladstone police were called since January for a different incident that involved somebody else different than the individual I spoke of earlier. Now, that's my memory, okay? I'm not saying I'm exactly right on that, but that's what I recall. So,
And so remind me again, everybody, are we, the meetings that the new stipulation is quarterly, or we're doing it quarterly now to the meetings?
we're doing it every other month, so there were 6 this last year,
And
and
you're talking about doing 4.
that's,
So in light of the discussions that we're having this evening, is that enough? Or would it be better to stick with the 6? I'm just throwing it out.
It was a proposal that Attorney Point staff found reasonable. If the city council wishes us to continue at every other month, I think we certainly will.
I mean, we're amenable to that, that's fine.
Do you think that in light of any of the experiences that you've had, is that helpful, or is that just, oh my, one more meeting, Kathy?
Well, that's kind of why I proposed to the city, the 4, because I felt like in meetings, it was great to have them for the communication purposes. I didn't feel like if I had an issue or a problem that I needed to address with the police department or Austin, I would go straight to them. And the community in general coming hasn't really happened that much to these meetings. Maybe the first one mainly, and the rest has been some representatives from the police department, Austin, some of our board members, that kind of thing. And so that's why I suggested going to quarterly, because I felt like that was what the public was speaking would be enough, basically. Yeah. But we are fine if we want to do every other month, I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Kathy?
Mayor,
Yes.
we should wrap this well. Kathy was up here, but we're going to hear, I'm sure, from the folks across the street at the church. And they have issues, and we can't deny they have issues. And I don't want us to be in the position to say we're only going to worry about what happens to the middle of the road, because they're still our neighbors. Any thoughts between either of you, what we can do to help mitigate their issues, people kind of loitering over there and what they're doing?
Yeah, we strongly encourage, we don't walk our clients down to their bus stop or anything like that. That's impossible.
Sure.
But in our safety agreement, one of the things we ask them to do is to walk on our side of the road and to make haste and, get to where they're going kind of thing. I feel like we have made really great strides this past year in working with the preschool, specifically Christy, who's the preschool director, I believe is her title. And just communicating, if there are issues that she has felt like there's somebody there that we could kind of come over and help move along. We've done that about 4 times, I believe. I've reported that. That was part of the report I submitted to you all. So I feel like we've made great strides towards that. We, have the instant communication, although she's just chosen to call. We put extra cameras on to be able to kind of watch their property if we need to go back and look at something. But we are absolutely, our desire isn't to not be good neighbors. We are absolutely concerned with the people across the street, even though they're in Kansas City, not just the people, on the Gladstone side of things. So yes, we are open to anything that we can do to facilitate that relationship better. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does, and I don't know what the answer is. I'm kind of hoping you would. But and I know there's only so much you can be possibly responsible for. But some of the instances I read about in the planning commission meeting, they're a bit frightening. And, the claim is, of course, if ATP wasn't there, perhaps, these folks didn't have a place to go with it. So I'm just looking for solutions. I don't know how often they've called Kansas City or at the Gladstone, if we know how many Kansas City calls that are all on top of the Gladstone calls. But again, it's a concern of theirs. I would imagine we're gonna hear from them. Just looking for solutions for their issues also. I don't have the answers, I only have questions.
So the folks, I will just say this, and the folks that we serve through our guest house are at-risk individuals themselves trying to survive on the streets. We all understand and know that. They do come with a mixed baggage of mental health issues, addiction issues, a lot of stuff, emotional baggage, just like we all do, and they're there, whether a turning point's there or not. They're in our community, they're in our, they're making camps in our, neighborhoods or in parking lots or wherever you are seeing and hearing about camps. They're doing it, there's no doubt, because there's no place to lay their head. And so, I'm not saying that they're innocent, they're always, on the appropriate behavior. I know they're not, but I also know that we're a resource for them, that they're trying to survive, and we're just trying to help them move forward in some way. So, Les, if I had great answers, I wish I did. But
I think we all support your mission 100%.
Your statistics that you laid out in your memo were pretty overwhelming in terms of the increase in all the services, so that's amazing. Yeah, great work.
Thank you.
Okay, you have nothing further for us? Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this special use permit? Now we'll
Just check the mic.
All right, thank you. We'll go to those opposed. Anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward in opposition?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and Councilman. I am Luther Salaman. I am the chair of the Early Childhood Center at Holy Cross Lutheran Church, which is across the street. In your packet, there's 25 instances of items that have happened. And, sometimes it's 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And so we can't call Kathy because they're not open yet. But you can look through theirs. I encourage you to read the 1127. That's kind of a frightening one. And I'm glad that you have read some of those. We are not opposed to Turning Point's mission. We are opposed to their location. We'd like that. We have a swaddling clothes thing for people that have babies and need baby care. Diapers, those kinds of things that we have for people to use. So, we're trying to help people in need also. It's just some of the scary things that happens when they're beating on your door. And the item on November the 27th where I'm assuming they wanted money, were beating on the door because they followed a staff member in and they tried to get in all the doors, couldn't. And it's on November 27th along there. And they went and talked to some parents. They talked casually, and I don't know if the parents gave them any money or not. But it did say in the log there, he said, well, he seemed pretty harmless. He only had a small bat. So, and I know homeless people usually carry something with them to defend themselves because they're on the street. I just would encourage them to move to a different location. That's our thing. And you can read all about the log stuff. So that's my comment. Do you have any questions for me?
Has your staff communicated with the KCMO Police Department? And if so, your opinion of how responsive they were?
And sometimes it takes them 20 or 30 minutes to get there. Because it's not, life-threatening, I guess. But the thing is that if you read the log, all of those incidents, I think 90% of those are calls to the Kansas City, Missouri Police, because we cannot call Gladstone Police because we're not in Gladstone. So, you've got the 17 incidences in 23, then you're gonna add the 25 on top of that we had. So, yeah.
Have you seen an uptick in 24 at all?
We've had some incidents in 24, but I can't speak to that. I don't know exactly what Chris had going on. Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah.
When we talked about this last year, granted the special use permit for a year, we put there's a lot of conditions placed on this. We were up to, I think, 20 special use conditions. A lot of those were designed to try to help the situation that, the daycare across the street finds itself in.
Yeah.
That was the intent of a lot of those. Do you think the situation a year down the road with those is better, worse, improving, same?
Yeah, I think it's probably about the same. I mean, it's good to have all of that in place. And I don't know that you could add anything else to that. I don't have any suggestions for that. We've been going to their bi-monthly meetings, and we haven't made all of them, but we've made quite a few of them. So we've voiced our opinions, and we'll probably continue to go to their meetings.
Thank you, appreciate that.
And I have a further question. Can you quantify what impact, if any, this has had on your services?
We've had a decrease of 12% in our children at our facility.
Do you think that that's directly related to a turning point and the incidents that you've had?
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. You got the economy that affects stuff and people's paychecks. So I really can't give you a really good answer to that, but I just know it's a decrease of 12%.
And percentages can be confusing, misconstrued. Actually, what's happening? What's the enrollment now as compared to a year ago?
65 versus 77.
Okay, so it's about 10.
And we're licensed for 99 kids. Okay.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the special use permit?
Madam Mayor, council members, my name is Craig. My name is Craig Meiser. I'm a pastor at Holy Cross. I see the kids at the child care center every day, and staff. I personally know that they're regularly on watch. The staff is, Christy is herself, especially. And the staff also gets a bit skittish. You know how if that staff gets skittish, so do the kids. It sends a bit of shockwaves, and so do the parents. We have seen parents outright turned away. So a lot more does get said. We also we do see a lot of just foot traffic in general, and it is maybe a little bit more than what Mr. Sallin had said. It is a bit of a turnoff as we can see it, the parents. I know also from staff discussions that we have not always, I have not been at a meeting, but I know that they do not always feel heard at the meetings. And so you guys may have been there on a few occasions, but that's part of the establishing the public trust, just making sure that the comments are heard and needed. I would just relate those things. That's from my perspective. And so, I mean, we all want to help the poor. We all are the poor, the homeless, the houseless, or whatever the term is. Mr. Sallin related some things exciting things that we have that we've been doing out of our congregation in in that event, but we want to stay safe. And I want to personally preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to these kids. And I love doing it. I love seeing them every day. I would really miss the opportunity as, you know, some incident comes like the one that's mentioned, and shockwaves get going through our school so that we can support it. So I don't know what can be done. I don't want Turning Point to cease to exist, but it's zoned for a residential area. So.
Any questions of this gentleman? Thank you. Any further members of the audience who wish to speak in on
Yeah, hello again. Stephen from Northland Neighborhoods Incorporated. I do have some statistics from the North Shoal Creek Division that can perhaps provide a broader context for cases that we've seen in KCMO. So in the 3 years before Turning Point was operational, calls for service were at 194, and case reports were at 104, and self-initiated cases were at 156. In the 3 years since Turning Point is opened, calls for service have increased to 277 for a 43% increase in calls. Self-initiated cases have dropped to 82, which is a negative 47%, but police staffing in the Northland, as we heard, sometimes it takes officers 30 minutes to get up, and that's just a problem throughout the city, and so response times are an issue, but that would be probably correlated to why you see a drop in self-initiated cases, and case reports have risen to 323 from 104 for a 211% increase. And those are calls from neighborhoods, things like that. And so also want to acknowledge, I think you guys are providing a wonderful service to anybody who lives in Gladstone, in KCMO. We know that homelessness is an issue on the rise. Inflation is causing more and more desperate circumstances, and so we see the need for this kind of service, but we also want to encourage a responsible ecosystem of healthy partnerships between nonprofits like Turning Point, from police departments in Gladstone and KCMO, from city organizations. And so really we just, as a representative of NNI and our neighborhoods, just wanted to bring those numbers for consideration as well, and just say that we would love to see an increase in partnerships. We would love to send a representative to those bi-monthly meetings to seek solutions for those, but also to encourage the city of Gladstone and KCMO. These are conversations that we're having of potentially providing greater mental health services provided by the city, to think about transportation issues, as we've heard from the folks at the church. Just foot traffic creates kind of an uneasy environment. And so, yeah, again, it's one of those where I don't have the solutions to a lot of these, and recognizing that Turning Point is doing a good work and a good service, and not wanting to squash that, but that does also come with its own new set of challenges as we look out for our community, and recognizing that just as it's right there on the border between Gladstone and KCMO, it represents communication challenges where one party can't be the sole responder, and we really love any collaboration, and I know Captain comes to our NCAT meetings, and that's very appreciated, but that's what we have. Any questions?
Any questions for Stephen?
So Stephen, regarding the statistics that you just read off there, is that for the entire Northland or just
that's for
the sector of
a
Gladstone?
quarter mile radius around Turning Point.
Okay, thank you.
And I do have copies of this report if anybody.
Other questions for Stephen?
I did not for you, Stephen. Luther? Yes. Question, or Craig. Is there a time of the day when more incidents occur, and is there a day during the week where the frequency increases because it's that day of the week?
I know there's been a lot of incidences in the mornings, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and it confounds me that Turning Point's not open yet, so why are people panhandling in that area that early in the morning before they open? So I don't know the answer, but that's usually, day of the week, I wouldn't know what day of the week that would be.
Yeah, I'm there most days of the week, and I see a little bit of a wave in the morning, but then especially in the middle of the day, say between 11 and 2, there's an awful lot of foot traffic again too. I know that Turning Point is shutting down right about then. But we do see a lot of incidents that they're reported among staff if I don't happen to be there in the middle of the day after 11 o'clock.
As our councilman said, we're trying to find a solution here. We want to keep a Turning Point. We want to keep your congregation and the preschool in operation. I think back during the holidays. If you go to Walmart, if you go to Hy-Vee, you have a presence periodically of a uniformed security person. If during the day, specific time is when you have more instances, and I know it costs money, you've got a limited budget that you're working with, but if it will increase enrollment, provide a presence of a security representative there, maybe that's a solution, and you only pay them for a couple hours.
But it's usually a minimum of 2 hours for a Kansas City off-duty policeman, and it's like $50 an hour. Now, that was several years ago when I checked that, but it could have gone up from that. But you're looking at, if you're doing at least 2 hours, you're probably going to need to do 3 at least. So there's $150 a day times 5 times, so it adds up pretty quick.
It does.
So
There's no cost.
that is an option. We've got some retired people in our congregation that, could go out there and kind of help out, but, they're not in the youngest, usually the youngest. So physically, they really couldn't do a whole lot with somebody that was aggravating. So, yeah, we've thought about that, but, budget constraints have hurt that.
Just threw that out. Thank you.
Any other comments for any of these gentlemen?
Yeah, regarding security, I was just at our properties board for our congregation, and they're seeking to install some extra cameras and lighting, which we have in fact already taken measures in that direction. But it's budget costs that we, as you mentioned, simply do not. I don't know if we use it legitimately, and also the concern is there because once you see a police officer there, you think, well, has there been trouble? So.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name's Randy Wilson. I'm a member of Holy Cross Lutheran Church and also on board of the ECC. And I don't have any statistics, I don't have any facts to tell you that you haven't already heard. I guess what I want to appeal to you guys is we've got 65 children under the age of 6 in our building every weekday. We're just trying to protect them as best we know how. And I gotta say, if you're just looking at you guys, I'm guessing you're not parents of school age children of those anymore. Maybe you're grandparents. If your student was at the Clardy Elementary School and ATP was across the street from it, would we even be having this discussion? I'll leave it there.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Wilson? Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the special use permit? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. council? Comments, concerns?
Mayor Moore? You know, in light of all the information that we've received tonight, it is troubling of the, of all the instances that we've seen in Holy Cross, the additional, calls for service in Kansas City in that quarter-mile area. That's really important information that's been brought to light. I fully intend to vote for a permit, but I believe that we need to continue, visiting in these meetings every other month. I think that quarterly might not be enough. But I think I would propose that we do this in a 1-year permit instead of 3. I think 3 is just too much still with the amount of instances that we're seeing with school-age kids in the area, early mornings, and just the uptick of problems in the area.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor,
Yes.
trying to read real quick about it. So the hours of operation part of the facility are 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. to whenever. They open at 7 o'clock. And I read the logs from the church, and a lot of these instances are happening at 6:15 and 6:30.
Yeah.
And the opportunity for Turning Point to open at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. Maybe those folks who are there waiting for them to open go to ATP instead of hanging out around the church. Just food for thought. Go ahead, Catherine. I was kind of looking at you.
We don't actually open at 7 o'clock. I think the hours of
Well,
7 a.m. to 10 p.m. are like hours that I guess we are eligible to be open.
Right.
We don't actually open any service any day until 9 o'clock. I was trying to think.
That's what I was trying to decipher, because I
Yeah.
saw the 10 a.m., but then the hours of operation for this location limited to 7 a.m.
Yeah, I think those are potential
Okay.
operating hours.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Mayor, I don't know if I can or words here. There's something that's very distressing to me. City manager, I'm gonna ask you the question. I don't care if it's for Captain Burris or Chief Ferris. But, we kind of stumbled into some information where we thought there were more calls than we had anticipated. And this was last week. Well, it turned out to be whatever it was. But that's post-planning commission. This has been a hot topic for a year. We had 200 people in here a year ago talking about this. And a major condition was we're going to track any problems that we had over there. My concern is it's not fair to ATP that we're sitting here on the night of their potential approval, deciphering new information from our police department. It's very, 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 very disturbing that has come to that. Maybe not disturbing, but disappointing. So have we fully vetted all of the calls that we think we've had? I mean, between Captain and between Kathy, it sounds like we know what has happened, okay? But again, we're doing that for this on the night of their approval. And I can't believe that the planning commission's gonna really like to know that we had information that we got, subsequent to their meeting. So what's the answer to my question?
Well, I think you're asking what we've done internally to address that. I visited with Chief Ferris about that, and he has actually had the crime analyst pull every call for service that they had. Some of those calls were duplicates. Some of those calls occurred at another location but were reported there. He had to vet all of that out to finally get the final number of what we were looking at for calls for service up there. I looked at the list, and I believe all of that has been vetted. And I think moving forward, we've put a plan into place that those statistics will be tracked by the crime analyst as they occur every day, and he is to be notified immediately of every call for service down there. So it's on his radar.
I understand. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody or be critical. I'm just saying that we're in the dilemma here because we're addressing information that we just recently received, including some stuff that happened that we fell into last week. I've been a big supporter of ATP. I'm on record as saying that, if we didn't have a ton of issues and everything was, monitored, that I'd be all in favor of 3 years come this point in time. There's been a whole lot of stuff thrown at us in the last week, and I don't know that I can support that. We definitely support whatever the council wishes to go along with, whether it's 1 year, 3 year, whether it's bi-monthly meetings for the first 6 months, or bi-monthly meetings continuing, whatever you choose. But I don't want to cut ATP off at the knees. So I feel compelled to at least support them for something, whatever the council's pleasure might be.
Any other comments? Well, I see some, we know that the bill that we have before us tonight, the ordinance that we have before us tonight, is quarterly meetings. That's one of the stipulations, and also it's a 3-year special use permit. So that is what we have to vote on. We cannot change that tonight. We can direct the staff to go back and change the ordinance to be a 1-year permit and to keep the bi-monthly meetings. We can do that, or we can simply vote on what we have here, which is the 3-year special use permit. So those are kind of our opportunities this evening. So I need to hear from council about what your pleasure is.
So I guess we need a motion.
Well, we don't have to have a motion, just as, I'm going to now ask our city attorney to weigh in here for us.
You don't have to have a motion if you have a consensus on the direction that you want to give to staff. I think the key is determining whether you want to act on the bill that's before you tonight, or you want to have something different proposed in front of you at the next meeting. And we just need some sort of direction as to how you want to handle it.
Well, I would propose that we go a different direction and place it on the agenda for the next meeting for a 1-year permit.
With bi-monthly.
With bi-monthly, yeah, bi-monthly meetings.
So that,
Is there a consensus for this?
I mean, the flip side is the special use permit, we can pretty much yank it to at any time when it's procedurally more complicated, but, let's see it, under the table thinking. The guy with the real mustache, what do you think?
I certainly support a turning point. I support their programs. I would support asking staff to redraft this with a 1-year special use permit instead of voting on a 3-year this evening and perhaps not getting that passed.
Seems as if we have some consensus to direct the staff to redraft the ordinance to a 1-year special use permit and to keep the bi-monthly meetings as they are stipulated now rather than the quarterly meetings in the ordinance that we have before us this evening. Have I stated that correctly, council?
staff understands that, and we'll prepare something and have it in front of you at the next council.
Thank you. Okay, so item number 12.